Chances are you've played the Haydn Concerto and you know that at the end of the first movement, there's that big space for a cadenza. Now, there are a lot of commercially available cadenzas out there, but I think it's really important to be able to develop your own voice in a cadenza, which means writing your own. I have all my students write their own, so that means you need to write one. But how do you do it? How do you construct a cadenza? Well, we're sort of lucky in the trumpet in that most of our best repertoire is in the 20th and 21st century, and the composers have given us specific cadenzas. We don't have to write very many. But Haydn is a great example of a concerto, since it's in the classical period, that Haydn didn't write one, he just gave us room to play one. And back in that era, it was the performer's total responsibility to come up with something. So let's talk a little bit about how you're going to construct your cadenza. First of all, understanding what the role of a cadenza is important. Face it, it's a place to show off. So we want to add some range, we want to add some fast notes, some loud notes, some soft notes. We want to show off sort of all the stuff that we can do on the trumpet. Now, however, we need to do that within the style. And that's what becomes a little bit more of a challenge, is to have things sound like it would have been played during Haydn's era. Now, that isn't always the case in concerti. I mean, you'll listen to pianists and violinists, and they'll have cadenzas that were written by leading soloists during a different era. Liszt wrote cadenzas for Beethoven concertos, and Kreisler wrote violin cadenzas for Beethoven. And there are even some modern cadenzas written by modern composers for those old pieces that go way beyond where the harmonic language is of those pieces. But to my ear, that sounds a little funky. And to be honest, if you're playing for an audition, you want to have a cadenza that really does match style, because you don't want to turn a committee off by playing something that's really, really, really out there. So what do? We understand, first of all, that in a classical period cadenza, you're looking at about 30 to 45 seconds, a minute tops. Shorter is probably better, in that that's what the performance practice was in the day. What you'll do is you'll take little snippets, little bits of each of the themes, and use them, and then expand upon them, connecting them with some scales and some arpeggios. It's actually rather simple. I'm going to take you through my cadenza of the Haydn Concerto, and you can get a sense of how I put it together. I'll start like this. Well, that's the main theme, right? Okay, I haven't done anything special yet, except I'm playing a little bit out of rhythm, but it's the first theme. But then I'll go on. So you heard I took bum 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 ba, bum ba da 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 dee. So I took that basic structure and added some notes to it. I just fancied it up a little bit. And then I'll continue doing that. So I've actually stuck pretty close to home here. I'm taking those melodies and just putting a little bit of extra to them. I'm filling out some scales, and I'm putting a little bit of some running 16th notes in and around them. But I'm staying very close to the melodies. And then I'll go on with a little bit of the material from the development section. So what you've heard there is I took some of those large skip arpeggios and added some big scale stuff and made sure I did a little double tonguing in there in those scales, which sounds sort of impressive. And now I've got to find a way to get out of the cadenza, which is always done through a cadential trill. I do 2 trills, that way the conductor or the pianist can't possibly miss it, and it also sounds pretty good. You want to play it with enough force at the end that the tutti at the end comes through. So I haven't done anything really special here. It's sort of like the role of the trumpet in playing Dixieland, which is you play the melody and then you stay pretty close to the melody. And what I'm doing is I'm just picking little bits out of the music that Haydn actually wrote and just expanding on it a little bit. Makes for something very interesting. So what I'd like for you to do is to start working on your own cadenza. I've given you examples of how I built mine, and you can play through some other ones that you'll find, whether it's through some recordings or many times there'll be some cadenzas that are included in your copy of the concerto. Play through those, see what other people decided to do, and then come up with your own. You'll also notice that I stayed very close to the harmonies 1-5-1 that Haydn wrote in the piece. We want to avoid getting too chromatic because it takes us away from where Haydn would have written things. Experiment a little bit and see how it sounds. Play it for your friends and send me a video. Let me hear what you've been up to.